Yo guys, how's it going? I just wanted to make this video because um I wonder what you guys think, but at the same time I kind of want to put my opinion out there because I feel like it's valid and obviously hopefully it helps. But I was thinking about the food crisis in the world and how there's a lot of people starving, and that makes me very sad. Or people have starved in the past and it makes me very sad. But I was wondering what you guys think about this. Essentially, um, the way I'm thinking about it, the food crisis is a crisis, right? So it's an emergency. So my thinking would be like in war times, like in the past, in World War II, there was rations handed out to people, and the rations were handed out regardless of your income, and you would get an amount of food per person, obviously to satisfy your caloric needs. And I'm thinking that because the food crisis is, as implies, an emergency, should there be a rations rollout, right? Because what I'm thinking in terms of, obviously there's people who have starved all over the world. It's not just it's not just your sort of stereotypical, I guess, place. I don't know. I don't know. I hope I didn't sort of word that wrong. But I feel like we get Red Cross supplies, for example, and that's okay. But like, I feel like below a level of income, below a level of ability to feed yourself through economy or through farming for your own food, I feel like that should be treated as a complete emergency. I feel like there should be rations saved up, essentially using rations to feed emergency situations, right? And the reason I think that, simply put, in for example, the Second World War, there was rations being handed out to people because, people had sort of no way to get food. Obviously, the economy had shut down because of the war, and people were getting food from what they needed, and it was supplied by the government and whatnot. And so I think that below a certain income threshold, that should be treated as a serious situation, especially if just as soon as you cannot afford food, as soon as you don't, whatever happened, whether it was a mistake, you accidentally spent your money, or whatever happens, if you can't get food and you will go hungry, I don't think that should be treated as an economic issue. I think it should be treated as a emergency issue. I think it should be treated as as kind of I think it should be treated as kind of deeply as conflict would be, because if you cannot feed yourself whatsoever, you are at conflict with yourself. You are at conflict with life, in a sense, and the result of starvation then leads to psychological issues, and not just that. Obviously, there are physical reasons that you do not stop eating, as horrible as it sounds. And essentially, I think that if we're going tax-free below a certain income range, I think below a certain income range, you should be registered for rations, because you could receive government help with money, but how do you ensure that that person will eat enough? And I think that the only way to do that would be obviously picking out allergens, but rations. And I feel like if we treated the world as a kind of um, a threat level, right? If we treated the world as a threat level, then we have the threat of starvation, and starvation is awful, obviously, but the threat of starvation should be held quite high. It is, but at the same time, I feel like if you don't earn a certain amount, you should be on a rations program. So, yeah, you'll receive your income. Like, for example, if you're in the UK, you might receive universal credit or personal independence payment if you had a disability. And I feel like if you were below a certain income, you should be signed up to a rations program and have your food delivered by the government. Because, I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, sure, but I mean, I just really cannot believe that there's, like, on one side of this scale, you've got people who are living very well off, very, very well off, and they can afford any food they want. They can get live food flown in on a helicopter to a yacht, and have a professional chef even, cook them whatever live on a yacht. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got people who are starving to death or have starved to death. I don't want to say starving to death because that implies it's going to happen. I don't want that to happen. I like thinking about it in the past tense. I like saying it has happened because I don't want it to happen, right? And so I think that essentially the same as we go tax-free below a certain income range, the same should be applied to food. Essentially, if you are below a certain income range or you have too little money in your bank, you are delivered the food and up until you are independent. Because a dog, an owner not feeding their pet, that's treated as animal abuse, and you can go to jail for that. A government not looking after the people, and I'm sorry to say this, but the world's governments not looking after the world's people, in the sense of feeding them below an income range. That's like saying run with a broken leg, right? It's impossible. So I think that really conflict lives at a threat level, and conflict is an example of natural disaster, right? Well, not natural disaster, actually. Conflict is a man-made concept, and at the same time it's animal instinct in the wild when animals want to feed, but in a societal sense and in a civilized way, food security means the security of people as well. And so therefore I think that below a certain income range, and no matter the circumstances, if you cannot get food because of you are below a certain income range, you should be on a rations program. to feed you and yours. And you know, I think essentially it could be, for example, stamps, which signify the amount of people in your house and the calories you'd need per day, and essentially get that food for free, because we're not taxing people on, for example, in the UK, we're not taxing people on £12,000, or that was the figure before. I'm not sure about now. People earning below £12,000 do not have to pay tax. Well, the government's not making any money on people below £12,000. So if people above £12,000 are being taxed, I feel like people below a threshold, it could be less than 12,000, right? Essentially, if you don't make enough to pay all your necessities and the food, you should be given food instead of maybe instead of money. But I think if desperate, like in places where there are very scarce resources, yeah, I think treat it as a immediate issue, because if you go to a hospital with a broken leg, they don't give you £10. They fix your leg. So if you're starving to death in a place with no resources, being given money, you might as well have been given a jacket in the Sahara, right? It completely useless. So I think a rations program, handing out rations for emergency food use, would be the only way to do that. And I think that if the world's governments implemented a threat level of, are rations necessary, and if they are, work together. But I don't know if that's, I don't know. But anyway, thanks for listening.